Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something that's literally reshaping how organizations secure their digital perimeters. We're talking about Microsoft Entra ID. We're going to unpack this blueprint for cloud identity together and figure out how modern access actually works under the hood. Let's get right into it.
All right, here's our highly structured flight plan for today's Explainer. 1. The aviation of identity. 2. Active Directory versus Entra. 3. Users and groups. 4. Devices and applications. And 5. Delegating power.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The aviation of identity, a metaphor for access.
Now, before we actually board this flight, let's set our foundation. We're talking about Identity and Access Management, or IAM. This is the study of managing users, credentials, authentication, authorization, directory services, and resource provisioning. I know, it sounds like a massive mouthful, right? But whether you're a seasoned IT pro or maybe kind of new to the cloud space, IAM is basically the digital bouncer of your organization. Microsoft owns the club, sure, but managing that guest list, that's entirely on us.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. Think of it exactly like an international trip. When you first get to the airport, what's the very first thing you show? Your passport, right? Well, in the IT world, that passport represents your credentials, your username and password. This is authentication. It's proving you are who you actually say you are. Then, when you land, you show a visa, which dictates exactly what you're allowed to do in that specific country. Like, are you just a tourist taking photos? Or are you there on a business visa having meetings? In IT, that visa is your permissions, representing authorization. And finally, that boarding pass you hold to actually get on the plane, that is your access token for a valid sign-in session. It really is a perfect way to make these abstract IT concepts instantly tangible and memorable.
Moving right along to Section 2, Active Directory versus Entra, the divide between legacy and cloud.
Okay, so we've got to address the elephant in the room here. It is incredibly common to just assume Entra ID is literally legacy Active Directory, just hoisted up into the cloud. But guys, they are fundamentally different. Legacy on-premises Active Directory uses a multi-master replication model. It relies on older protocols like NTLM and Kerberos, and it actually lets you use unroutable local domains like .loc. By contrast, Microsoft Entra ID is a modern identity-as-a-service platform. It uses a single master replication model, leverages modern web protocols. We're talking OpenID, OAuth, SAML, and it absolutely requires a publicly routable internet domain. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't just require it, it's built entirely around it. It's a completely different architecture designed for a borderless world.
Which brings us to a really crucial quote directly from our source material. Entra ID is not a replacement for Active Directory on-premises. Think of it as a means to extend your identity network beyond the on-premises and into the cloud. Look, for medium to large enterprises with massive on-premises investments, you obviously don't just throw out your local servers. There's no way. Instead, you take a hybrid approach. You use tools like Entra Cloud Sync to securely bridge your legacy IT with this brand new cloud frontier. It's the best of both worlds.
All right, into the meat of things. Section 3. Users and groups, pillars 1 and 2.
So where do these users actually live, right? Well, it really comes down to 3 business scenarios based on their source of authority. First, you've got federated users. This is the more conservative approach where passwords and authentication stay strictly on-premises. Second, synchronized users. Here, accounts originate locally, but the password hashes are synced to the cloud, which allows for direct authentication against Azure. And third, and this is the big one, cloud-native users. If your team practically lives in cloud apps anyway, managing their entire lifecycle natively in Entra ID is absolutely the most modern, streamlined way to go.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we actually manage these users. In legacy IT, we lived and breathed assigned groups, right? An administrator having to manually add or remove members one by single one. But with an Entra ID Premium P2 license, we unlock dynamic groups. This is a total game changer. By adding just a simple rule, like say setting the user department attribute to equal sales, Entra will automatically scan your tenant. Anyone whose attribute matches is instantly added to the group. And when someone switches departments, boom, they're automatically removed. It saves administrators massive amount of time and basically eliminates manual human error.
Keeping with our rule of 4, let's move to Section 4, Devices and Applications, Pillars 3 and 4.
So here is a massive real-world challenge for a remote-first workplace. How exactly do we securely manage company-owned hardware versus personal devices? If you treat them the exact same way, you're either going to totally violate user privacy or you're going to completely compromise corporate data. It's a really tricky tightrope to walk.
To solve that challenge, Entra ID offers 3 distinct strategies. First, we have Entra Hybrid Join. This is for computers already joined to your on-premises Active Directory. They just get dual joined for that legacy integration. Second is Entra Join, which is a direct cloud join specifically for company-owned Windows devices. But the third one? This is the real hero feature for the modern workforce, device registration. This is your absolute go-to for bring your own device, or BYOD, and non-Windows mobile platforms. Essentially, users register their personal devices so Entra recognizes them, and that allows secure access to resources without the company taking full, heavy-handed control over someone's personal phone. And the best part, all of these can be beautifully managed right through Intune.
And that brings us to the 4th pillar, applications. Now, we all know migrating legacy on-prem apps can be incredibly complex, but integrating modern apps, it is an absolute breeze, thanks to the Apps Gallery. Think of the gallery as a curated catalog within Entra ID packed with pre-integrated SaaS apps, like DocuSign, for example, that are already configured to work seamlessly without any custom coding. So instead of having your developers write custom authentication code from scratch, you literally just go to the gallery, click Add, configure your single sign-on, and you are done. The business value and the sheer amount of time saved here by leveraging these pre-integrated applications over manual app registration is truly staggering.
Okay, let's move to and see how this builds into our final topic. Section 5, Delegating Power, Securing the Cloud Perimeter.
I'm just going to say this flat out. Granting global admin access to everyone is an organization's most dangerous mistake, period. The global administrator role literally holds the keys to the kingdom. If everyone has it, just one single compromised password takes down your entire corporate infrastructure. That's game over. Granular delegation isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely non-negotiable in cloud architecture.
So, how do we safely delegate that power? Well, we use administrative units, or AUs. AUs let you logically clump specific users and devices together by geography or by department for localized management. For instance, you could group all the users and devices in your London office into one AU, and then assign a local IT person to manage just that unit. They have power over London, sure, but they can't touch New York. Then, we step it up with Restricted Management AUs, or RMAUs. This is the ultimate ironclad protection for VIPs and C-suite accounts. You push your CEO in an RMAU, and once they're in there, even a global admin cannot make undocumented changes to their account without explicitly assigning themselves a very specific role first. This guarantees perfect auditability in your logs. No one's making sneaky changes without leaving a fingerprint.
So, we've covered the aviation metaphor, we've bridged that gap between legacy and cloud, explored our 4 pillars, and learned how to lock down our admin powers. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. In a borderless cloud environment where your users are logging in from personal devices at coffee shops literally halfway across the world, is your organization's identity its strongest perimeter, or is it its weakest link? By understanding the Entra ID blueprint we just explored today, you have the exact tools you need to ensure it's an unbreakable perimeter. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I highly encourage you to get hands-on and explore your own tenant for yourself. See you next time.